You started with these sessions with sixth graders about your book, and now you've reached notable figures like Shashi Tharoor. How does that make you feel?
You notice that some of them carry themselves in a certain way that makes you feel very humble. Like Shashi Tharoor, for example, that's the top echelons of Indians. Like he's someone who's really he's brilliant in so many different ways.
How can students use social media to have a positive impact on the environment?
I think this podcast is one example of us doing that. Creating content in any space with the goal of educating and inspiring people is the need of the hour.
Welcome back, everyone, to our second segment of the fourth podcast with Ishan Shanavas. Continuing from the first segment, you use social media to share your knowledge and your experiences with wildlife. How can students use social media to have a positive impact on the environment?
I think this podcast is one example of us doing that. To move me from the equation, creating content in any space with the goal of educating and inspiring people is the need of the hour. It's the new way in which we can create an impact in whatever space that we want to create an impact in. And so I would encourage all of you to double down on this. I'm just one person, if we talk about the environment in particular, I'm just one person involved in this space in some capacity. Invite 10 more guests. Just do this. Put it out there with the blind hope that it will reach the right person at the right time. That's what I would say.
Yeah, and I feel like the environment is something that's not talked about enough.
Yeah, exactly.
So if there was more outreach like our podcast, then it would have a positive impact.
I think this is the ethos behind anyone creating content around this. So look, the environment isn't my main thing. I don't work in this space. It's just something that I'm passionate about. It's something that I have been passionate about for as long as I can remember. And so even though I'm not formally, quote unquote, involved in this space, I decided to create this platform and I decided to put all of this out there because this is something that I believe in. And I feel like more people should do the same.
Right, yeah. And you have your venture, Eco Inspire.
Yeah.
Tell me, I'm just curious, where did the idea behind Eco Inspire come from, and how did building that from the ground up, how did that affect you, and how did it work?
Oh, I'm so passionate about this. That's why I'll give it to you straight. So I had written this book and I published it shortly before graduating. And I had noticed that the media was picking it up, people were liking it, and I was getting a lot of inbound opportunities to speak. And the ethos behind this book was to inspire people to care for the natural world. That's something that I want to do because it's a cause I care about. And to me, the next logical step was to take that message to people that needed to hear it. And that meant going to schools, going to colleges, to corporates and so on, and speaking to them under the same message. And so I remember I lined up, just after graduating, I lined up a few speaking gigs, some of it that came inbound, some of which I created by just reaching out to people, telling them that, listen, this is who I am. I create this work on social media. I wrote this book. Why don't I do a session for your students or something? And they said, okay. And I remember my first session was with a group of sixth graders just around me. I think 16 sixth graders were around me in this library. And I did this session and I was blown away by the response. People were so interested in hearing about these stories and learning about these creatures because in school we learn about all these fancy things and chemistry and all that. That's a separate conversation, but we have this exposure to all these different spaces and all these different fields, but wildlife and nature is not something that people talk about. I believe that this is something that people should talk about, and so that's why I started this. And so that snowballed eventually because I did this initial set of speaking gigs, and eventually word got around that here's this kid Ishan with this venture, Eco Inspire. I decided to brand it under this venture, Eco Inspire, so that it's a little more formal. Who's going around and doing all of this? Why don't you invite him? And then that's when things really came inbound. So I remember eventually I had done a lot of places in Bangalore, and then other cities started reaching out. So then I scaled it to Mysore. and then in and around Bangalore also, like around Bangalore, those other smaller districts. And then I started getting invites across different states. And so, as of today, Econspire has reached 28,000 people
Wow.
in over 25 cities and towns, over maybe 6 states in India. Yeah, it's been quite.
You started this how long ago?
Today, it'll be maybe 9, 10 months. Maybe.
10 months and already like
Yeah.
what 28,000 people.
Yeah, but, see, I ran
That's
this.
wild, yeah.
I ran it like a startup, basically. Hyper growth. This thing, you're just trying to scale as fast as possible and try and just acquire as many. Think of them as customers, but just to use that lingo
Yeah.
to just try and reach out to as many people as possible. So I remember there were days where I would do 5 or 6 sessions in one day. Can you imagine speaking for 5 or 6 hours
Must be tiring.
every day? Yeah, no, it drained me, but it drained me at the end of the day. When I was doing it, it was very energetic because I was talking about something I cared about, and I did a lot of sessions in schools, and so this was with kids, so
Yeah.
it would energize me. But yeah, afterwards it would drain me. It was one of the most. It taught me a lot about what it takes to build something entrepreneurially, and I'm a better person for it.
And you mentioned like you started with these sessions with sixth graders
Yeah.
about your book, and now you've reached notable figures like Shashi Tharoor. How does that make you feel?
Well, it's nice. Through Econspire and the book and some of the other work, I've been able to talk to national leaders, Shashi Tharoor, so on, regional leaders, even local leaders, and other prominent people. And one thing you notice is that some of them carry themselves in a certain way that makes you feel very humble. Like Shashi Tharoor, for example, I mean, that's the top echelons of Indians. Like he's someone who's
Brilliant,
really,
yeah.
he's brilliant in so many different ways. But he's a man of such extraordinary class and humility. Can you imagine if you're at that stage? I mean, you can be as cool as you want, but he's so humble and down to earth. I respect that. I hope to be like that at some point.
So while writing The Light of Wilder Things, were there any ways of thinking and approaching problems that you kept coming back to?
Could you elaborate?
So while writing The Light of Wilder Things,
Yeah.
were there any ways of thinking or approaching problems?
Yeah. Well, I thought of the book as a product that I was trying to create. That going back to thinking entrepreneurially, and this meant boiling it down to its different parts. I was, like I told Amy earlier, I wanted the book not just to be a bunch of words. I wanted it to be words crafted in a certain way that it conveyed a certain emotion. I wanted it to always feel like the story was moving forward. This is something I feel, and this is a separate conversation, but once you write a book, you read stories with a certain editorial lens. And right now, when I read other books, whenever it feels like the story isn't moving forward, I get frustrated. Because to me, that's what a book should do. It should move you through it. Right? You cannot.
Continuous.
Yeah, it should just not meander somewhere. So that was something that came into the book. In trying to deliberately craft something of value, I decided to illustrate the book as well, because I just wanted to add that art dimension to it. I decided to photograph. 95% of the images are my images. Going back to the fact that I wanted to create a certain experience for the reader, just like an entrepreneur wants to create a certain experience for the user. I wanted the reader to feel a certain thing. So even, and this is going really into the depths, but I think you like it. When you talk about little anecdotes within the story, you're writing that with a certain purpose. You want the reader to feel a certain thing, and you as the author can choose how much to dial in terms of emotion. You can really go hard and smack the viewer, but if you keep smacking the viewer with a lot of emotion, then they'll feel fatigued, and so you want to overwhelmed, right? So you want to find that balance in not dialing it up to the extreme, but not dialing it so back down that people feel like why is this part of the story? And so yeah, I'm very passionate about this because writing a book, at least something of quality, involves all these small details, and if you focus on each small detail in each paragraph, it'll all accumulate to have something that is powerful. And I think it's evident in the reception the book has had.
Absolutely. I think it's the outreach it's had is amazing. And speaking of outreach, a lot of young people feel they don't have the right credentials or they have to wait for the right moment to begin something like you have. What would you say to them?
I would tell them that I understand where that emotion is coming from. And I'd also tell them that no one is ever going to give you permission. So you might as well give it to yourself.
Right.
Right? I had this one mindset shift one day when I was thinking about writing the book, when I felt like, oh, I was 19 when I started. Okay, so I'm just 19 years old. Why would anyone want to read my book? Uh, there are so many naturalists. I'm not a naturalist, but this is that type of book, right? So there are so many naturalists with 40 years of experience. Maybe they should write. And then I realized that, first of all, no one is talking about this youth perspective. So that is actually a gap in the space that I can fill. And I realized that no one is ever going to tell me I'm good enough. I just have to, I have to hype myself up in a certain way.
Right.
And tell myself that I'm good enough and I'm trying to reach a specific kind of person. And so if someone doesn't like it, to hell with them. I don't care about that. I know what I want to do. We have two futures, either a future where the book is written and a future where the book is not written. Which one do you want? Obviously the second, right? And so it, in many ways, especially this is something that I talk a lot about to aspiring writers when they tell me that they want to write, but they have all these questions of self-doubt. So it's called imposter syndrome, this
Right.
particular feeling. And I tell them that it boils down to this simple question: do you want to live in a future where this has happened or where this hasn't happened? Obviously the second, right? And that starts with you getting down and going back to what I told Amy earlier, writing 10,000 words. That's how it starts. So people who feel imposter syndrome, I hear you. It's a tough decision to make, but progress only starts once you take that decision. So just get on with it.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us, Ishan. From a chance encounter with a tiger at 14 to a best selling book and a program that's now reached over 28,000 people, it's clear that paying attention to the world can really take you further than any other roadmap. And you can pick up his book, The Light of Wilder Things, and you can even follow Ishan's journey on his website, Ishan Shanavas, and his Instagram at ishan.shanavas. Thank you.